What is your body's weight set point?
Mine?
No, in general.
It's a very personal question.
Whoa, hard pivot.
Dr. Sara Siavoshi is a triple board certified neurologist and obesity medicine expert.
Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, semaglutide, tirzepatide, all of them are GLP-1 agonists. GLP-1 is neuroprotective. It has this big role in the brain. It's anti-inflammatory for the brain. And so this big study that just came out actually showed that GLP-1 increased cognition, decreasing the risk of dementia. That's amazing. Some supplements do work, but we're never going to get good studies from them because there's not a pharmaceutical company backing the study. We have these huge companies backing these studies for Ozempic and Mounjaro. So they get the good studies. We see the safety data behind them because they have pharma money behind them. That's the honest truth. If you're out and you want to enjoy that meal and have that dessert after, enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it. Live a balanced life, but in your day-to-day, try to restrict your calories and focus on whole food. You'll have someone who doesn't believe in GLP-1s who will say, listen, you just have to get off your ass, exercise, and start eating less. That's a lot easier said than done. But if you cannot, and you're struggling, and you're being gaslit by people telling you to do these things, and you just can't do it, then start a medication. It helps you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to talk to you. I feel like we've been kind of in the DMs for a little bit now.
Yeah.
So it's always good to...
And you're always traveling.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to reach.
Yes, I know. I've been definitely in my travel era right now. Post-divorce, travel, gone all the time. It's been amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah. So there's a lot that I want to talk to you today, but when I was preparing for this episode, I thought that something really interesting is what you talk about with like the dopamine loop as it pertains to eating and food and disordered eating and all of that. So I think that would be a great entry point into this conversation because I know that my audience, it's very relevant for them. It's been relevant for me at times in my life. And whenever I do Q&As, people always ask about binge eating. And I'm like, I don't really know what to tell you because A, I'm not a professional, and B, for me, I had to hit rock bottom with it in order to change. So let's start there, but you can introduce yourself to the audience first and tell them who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Sara Siavoshi. I am a board certified neurologist and headache specialist and weight loss specialist. So many different specialties. And I love that you want to start with the dopamine loop because I think that so many people out there are talking about GLP-1s, Ozempic this, Ozempic this. There's like a million Ozempic experts, right? And like at this point, we've heard it. It works. It's great. And then there's the other side that villainizes it. Whatever. There's these arguments. But I think the question that I get asked most is, how did you as a neurologist, you're a brain doctor, why are you an Ozempic doc all of a sudden? So a couple reasons. Number one is that, I don't know if I was like meant to be a doctor. And when I started practicing medicine, one of the things that I was most interested in was just like the existential crisis of humanity. I feel like we all live and struggle and work, and our day-to-day is so rough, especially in this country, and we're all constantly chasing happiness. Like we all want to be happy, and that's that dopamine loop, right? Like chase, 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 run, run, run. Try to achieve some level of euphoria and satisfaction that I don't know if that truly exists, at least not in this life. I don't know. I feel like it's a constant. I was just reading this article today and they were calling it a hedonic treadmill of us just constantly chasing fulfillment. But when I would sit there in my office as a neurologist, and I still practice as a neurologist, looking at people, especially in their older age, I would see them with their regrets, and it would make me so sad. And one of the biggest regrets that a lot of people had was just not focusing on their health, not preventing illnesses that they could have prevented. And so also as a headache specialist, I saw a lot of people who were overweight and struggling. And so when I heard about the GLP-1s that came out, I saw how much they were increasing people's satisfaction in life. Like, okay, yes, as a neurologist, they increase your brain health, right? Like they will make your brain fuller and more healthy with increased neuroplasticity for a lot longer and decrease your risk of dementia, decrease your risk of various cancers. They're incredible. The research shows that, the science is there. But also when people lost weight and they would come into my office, they would come in so happy. They were different people and they would tell me that they felt more confidence. They could now pursue relationships that they couldn't pursue before just because of a lack of self-confidence, right? Like confidence is everything. Us as humans, there's this inherent desire to feel recognized and loved. And so we want to feel like we can achieve our goals, like we can talk to people and feel like we're connecting, right? And a lot of times when you don't have self-confidence and you feel badly about the way that you look, it just sucks. And so, a lot of the doctors out there are saying, well, don't focus on the aesthetics. But to me, the aesthetic part is also really important. And I loved that I was helping their brains, helping people live longer, reducing their risk of cancers, but making them increase their self-confidence. And for me, that was so, so, so important. Sorry, I know I talk a lot, but along that dopamine loop conversation, there is an article that recently came out and it was Ozempic's effect on the brain. And there were two really big takeaways. There was actually three, but two of the big takeaways that I loved and I was so interested, and you'll love this as well because it has to do with addiction. One of them was that, well, first of all, the GLP-1s, the GLP is this like class of drugs, right? Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, semaglutide, tirzepatide, all of them are GLP-1 agonists. They increase GLP. Some of them also increase a different receptor, GIP. But in general, they all also increase GLP-1. GLP-1 is neuroprotective. And I think people forget that it has this big role in the brain. It's anti-inflammatory for the brain. It's neuroprotective. And so this big study that just came out actually showed that GLP-1, Ozempic itself, increased cognition, decreasing the risk of dementia. That's amazing. So it's anti-inflammatory for your brain, increasing your memory scores, decreasing your risk of dementia. As a neurologist, I'm all about it. I love that. Number two, Ozempic, as we know, also works on the mesolimbic pathway. What is that? That's this dopamine pathway in the brain where it dampens dopamine. Okay, so what's this whole dopamine? Dopamine is like the Kim Kardashian of neurotransmitters. It's like the superstar. Everyone always talks about dopamine, and honestly, it's a little played out, but it is still important. Like dopamine, what happens is it's a desire hormone. It's not necessarily all the biggest player in addiction. So like, let's just take a person who's addicted to Coke. Okay, like a cocaine addict.
Me.
Was that you?
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about alcohol.
Alcohol was my first love, but I was a blackout drinker from the beginning. And I was like, I got to figure something out to manage this. And then I found Coke and I was like, hello.
Okay.
Now I'm not blacking out. So then it was alcohol and Coke. And then it was benzos to help come down and then manage the anxiety the next day. But then the benzos were dampening a little bit too much. And so then I needed Adderall to pick me up during the day. So it was those
Classic.
four. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I've heard that story. That's so common.
But it was all to support the drinking. That's like the first love.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, in any of these, right? So when you drink alcohol, when you do Coke, or even when you're like addicted, when you have like a highly addicted personality to food, you've got a food addiction, the dopamine is what's driving the addiction. It's driving the motivation to get to that place where you feel euphoric, right? So you do Coke and you do a line or two or whatever, or you're drunk, you're belligerent. And the first couple times especially, there's these opioid receptors that are on fire and it's releasing this euphoric feeling of like, wow, I feel great. But what happens when you start doing this over and over and over and you habituate? The opioid receptors aren't as active, right? You're not feeling as euphoric anymore. So why is it so addictive if you're not feeling as great anymore doing it the 100th time? Because dopamine is still driving you to want to achieve that euphoria, that opioid trophy, right? Like you want to feel that, but you're not feeling it anymore. So you have to go, 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 go. Let's get more. Let's do more. Let's get there. That's dopamine.
Chasing the high.
Chasing
I
the
always
high.
said like there was nothing like that first time that I did it. But every time that I would do it, I would think maybe we'll get back there like that. And that was the chase for 10 years.
Exactly. Exactly. So what we think about Ozempic and these GLP-1s is that they dampen the chase, not necessarily the high. They don't dampen the opioid. They dampen the chase. They dampen that mesolimbic pathway. They dampen the dopamine so that you're not chasing. So I'll tell you something, and this is like a little controversial because I'm a skinny little thing. Right now I'm pregnant, whatever, it's different. But I have, when I wasn't pregnant, I was like, you know what? I have prescribed Ozempic to a gazillion of my patients now. I need to know what the hell this thing feels like. So I tried it. I tried it once. I actually tried Mounjaro, which is sort of like the star, right? It's like the version 2.0. It's amazing. Tried it once, felt sick for a few days. It's like I just felt nauseated. It wasn't fun. The first time some people feel it, take it, you can feel a little nauseated, and then you get used to it and it's great. After a few days, though, it was so interesting. I remember going to a really good restaurant and I had this great meal, and I was eating, and I wasn't. So I have an addictive personality in general, okay? And I'm like a binge eater, especially when I'm social. I just want to eat, and it's this compulsive, like I can't stop, which is annoying. But I remember when I was at this restaurant, I didn't have that compulsion to eat. I wasn't eating in a manic way. I was eating really slowly and I enjoyed every bite. Why? Because the GLP-1 wasn't necessarily working on my opioids. I still felt that really great high from food, but I wasn't chasing it. So I was eating much less, much slower. And that food noise was gone, which was amazing. Now, I didn't need to lose weight. That's not my problem. I didn't continue it. But I experienced it and it was really great. I now understand what that food noise dampening feels like, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have done it as well. And something that they have said is like they don't want their wine at night or they don't want their coffee. And I don't know if that's a side effect of the nausea maybe, or if it's because of that drive is like dampened, that desire.
So that's exactly what that article just showed, is that it's dampening the desire for addictive behaviors. People were not just being seen to have this neuroprotective effect and have a decreased risk of dementia, but they had a decreased risk of nicotine use, smoking. And so now the GLP-1s, Ozempic type drugs are being studied for alcoholism. And I'm seeing tons of my patients come back and say, I don't really want to drink. And these aren't like alcoholics, actually. These are people who just drink socially, but maybe too much sometimes. Like it's an unnecessary form of calories, alcohol. It's a lot of calories. But they're like, I don't want to drink. It's great. I've cut those calories out of my life, but also it's just healthier. I feel great the next day when I go out.
It's an interesting conversation. And I think it'll be a debate because I know for myself, like I'm in recovery and I have been since I got sober, and not to get too much into it because I don't talk about it on a public level, but you know, they said decades ago, maybe someday science will achieve something where you can take a pill and your desire to drink will be gone. But until then, there's got to be another way. So for me, it was like this spiritual path that has brought me so much fulfillment, and it just eradicated the need for me to drink or do drugs, not replacing one with the other, but it was like the obsession was lifted. I haven't thought about drinking or doing drugs. I haven't had a desire since the day that I got sober. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I wouldn't trade that for a shot or a pill or something that could take away the desire to drink or use. But obviously, there are people who don't want to go down that path. And there are people who aren't technically alcoholics, but they are problem drinkers where, you know, it's like a harm reduction thing where I think it could be, you know, incredibly valuable. Or people who just cannot get sober and they try the recovery thing and they can't stay in and they're in and out. And, you know, potentially, I believe it's a chronic terminal disease. It's going to lead you down that path. And it usually gets worse, never better. So in those cases, like it could be life-saving.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. A lot of the people that I know who have recovered from addiction, they replace one addiction with another. Are you like, is there, do you have like another addiction that you've replaced it with that's a healthy addiction?
Matcha. No, just kidding. No, I have one matcha a day. No, it's weird. Like, I mean, I just became a very moderate person. I mean, I definitely recognize certain behaviors where it's like, if I'm dealing with something kind of emotionally triggering, I'll go shopping. You know what I mean? But I'm like, oh, I'm acting out right now. Like I am trying to numb out that thing and I am aware of it.
Yeah. But you're like describing an ascetic lifestyle, like a monk's lifestyle.
I'm definitely
which is like not you.
No, I mean,
I've seen what you wear.
Yeah.
You are not a monk. You are not that.
But I just don't have anything that I consider to be an addiction. I think when I was newly sober, like when I was around 2 years sober, when I started my Instagram account, at the time I started it as a fitness accountability thing. I was doing BBG, Kayla had seen as bikini body program, counting macros, working out 7 days a week, never miss a Monday, doing all the challenges, posting the selfies.
She used to be obsessed, remember? You used to do Kayla every day.
And at that time I was like, I didn't know what health and wellness looked like. I thought that it meant having abs. And at that time, it was like the days of Arctic Zero and Quest bars, like microwave Quest bars and Halo Top. And I was restricting during the day and I was counting macros. I was at like 1,800 and I'm like, well, I can still eat so much. Then I'll do 1,200. This is like 2 years sober-ish.
Okay.
And lots of control and lots of binge eating and things like that. And so I think that is kind of the closest thing where I was using these things to kind of modulate how I felt. And there was a lot of control and there was a lot of addictive and disordered behavior, but I didn't know it at the time. Like I thought that I was getting healthy, and then I had to hit a rock bottom with that where like I had no energy, I was eating so few calories. I was working out like crazy. That was the sole focus of my life. I couldn't go out to lunch because I would bring my boiled chicken and Tupperware with my food scale. Like that's no way to live. So that was a big turning point for me when I acknowledged that. And then that's when I like learned how to meditate and like tune into my body and stuff like that. And I definitely have had, phases, I think, in my recovery in the past decade where I don't know. I don't think I've ever been addicted to anything. Certainly not in the way that I was addicted to like alcohol, where it's consuming, there's consequences, it's all I think about. Every decision is revolving around that thing, whatever it is, except for those early days when it was like the food and the exercise piece.
I think it just speaks to the human problem of like, it's really hard to be happy and content. It's so hard to be happy and satisfied and fulfilled. And then when you think there's these things that are going to make you satisfied and fulfilled, you get them. And then you're like, I'm happy for a second, but now I need more. It is a constant problem. And, you read all these articles like, this is one problem that I know that I have this issue. Every single place I get to in my life, I'm like, I need this. And I need this, and I need this. And so I get there, I achieve it, and I'm happy for literally 2 minutes. And then I'm like, well, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? You build a house, it's beautiful. You have kids, they're great. They don't really truly bring on that fulfillment. They really don't. Like this life is just devoid of fulfillment. So I actually don't know what the answer to that is. It's so interesting because I was reading something else that was saying, you need to just like find the little joys in life, right? Like let's sit down and enjoy things just as a hobby and not as necessarily something that you have to be great at, right? Like we're sort of narcissistic beings. Everything comes down to look at me, I'm great at this. And so you become so competitive with yourself and with other people. And that's also an evolutionary philosophy of like, you have to be great at the expense of someone else's loss to feel this joy and happiness. And it's terrible, it's selfish, it's awful. That's who we are as humans. And so, it's like one of the things that they say, what social psychologists say will make you happy is just finding the joys in little hobbies and really, truly enjoying them just for the fun of enjoyment, not for being the best. It's okay if you suck at it, just try it and have fun. And so you'll ask people like, what do you do for fun? What do you like to enjoy? And a lot of my friends, at least in my circle, will go out to parties, right? Like you'll go out to dinner with your friends or whatever. And it's great when you go out with people you're comfortable with. But what ends up happening, I'm Persian. Okay. I don't know if you know any other Persian people. We are so gaudy. It's like the most ridiculously gaudy culture. It's awesome. It's beautiful. But we're also just like very competitive, gaudy people. So you go to a party with other Persians, and this is supposed to be your hobby. This is supposed to be fun. This is what's supposed to bring you that satisfaction and that fulfillment and that really true happiness. But you go to the party, and what are you thinking about the whole time? What am I going to wear? You buy 5 boxes of clothes from every luxury company that you can find, and you have to try these on. It becomes, you go to the party, your makeup has to be perfect, your hair has to be perfect, and then it's like literally just the most stressful event, right? Like life just becomes this stressful thing sometimes for so many of us because we actually don't know how to just enjoy the small things in life. So that's one thing that I'm really trying to focus on is just stay quiet, stick with people that make you feel comfortable, that you don't have to have that look at me complex with or that competition, or that don't make you feel uncomfortable. It's good to feel uncomfortable because that drives you, right? Like that drives all of us. But it's so good also just to be around people who make you feel comfortable. And I think for me, like that's my way of trying to feel fulfilled and really trying to experience true joy.
Yeah, I remember I had a psychologist on the show who talked about slow dripping happiness throughout your day. And she's like, whatever that is, if it's like your coffee in the morning, like sit there and really enjoy it. Don't be like scrolling on Instagram while you're drinking it. I mean, it's like,
hard.
Yeah. But I think about my own experience, at least in the last 10 years, because everything prior to that kind of a shit show. But I think back to when I first got sober, and I was in sober living for 6 months with a bunch of other women after being in rehab for 6 months. And then I moved into this like tiny apartment. I got this like older used car. I was working at a boutique in Santa Monica, like making $800 every 2 weeks. And I was so happy. It was the happiest time of my life, probably, because life was so simple. And I mean, also I was like newly sober, and I could do things that I couldn't do. Like I could not go to the DMV to get like my freaking registration. That was something that I just could not do when I was in my addiction. And I was like, all I want is registration and valid insurance and a valid license. And I couldn't do it, like I would make the appointment at the DMV in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, I was still drunk, and I would have to make it for another 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I'm still drunk in bed. So being able to do those little things and be like a normal functioning member of society was so like amazing to me. But also life was just so simple and sweet. And my focus was my little job, showing up, and then like my recovery and like finding ways to be of service. And that's like the only way that I know to like really touch that thing inside me, because to your point earlier, the shoes, no, the bags, the flying private, like done all that, the houses, the cars, like I did all that, and nothing brought me any kind of sustainable returns. And I had somebody on last week, Dr. Elisa Hallerman, and she was like, all those things have expiration dates, the shoes, what that lasts 2 days, maybe, if that, like the relationship, like all of these things have expiration dates. So you have to find something that sustainably delivers that feeling of fulfillment. And it's hard, to your point today. It's really hard. And, I think so many people listening, and so much of the feedback that I get from people who listen to the show are like, I don't even know where to start, And I think when you ask people, what are their hobbies? What do they do for fun? Like, I know when people ask me sometimes, I'm like, huh? I don't even know.
Yeah.
This year especially has been like, I would compare this year to those early days when I was newly sober, because this year, like after I got divorced, I was kind of like, all right, I need to like figure out who I am again, like not in this relationship. And it's been fun. And I am finding things that I love, and things outside of work, and exploring my identity. That's what I'm working on in therapy right now. Like, what is my identity outside of like my job and a relationship and all of that? But it's hard. It's really hard.
I know. I mean, Is it going to stop you though from still buying nice things?
No. The best part is I feel like if I'm doing both, if I'm like working, if I'm doing my ways of being of service and getting that like fulfillment, maybe helping other women who are like wanting to get sober, whatever, like that really lights me up. If I have balance, if I am, pouring myself into my relationships, doing things that I love and buying the stuff, then I can enjoy it. Yeah. And I also don't have expectations. Like I fully know, even if I'm in one of those weird spots where I'm like, I just need to go to Neiman's and like spend some fucking money. Like I don't even care what I buy. Like I know it's not going to really move the needle at all, And then I think when there's no expectation attached to it, then I can enjoy it. Like I bought a new house. Like I am enjoying that. I'm enjoying the process, and like got a new car and I enjoy the car. I love it, because I bought it for myself and that was like a goal of mine. So in that way, like it's not to say that you can't get any enjoyment out of anything, but I just think that like to expect that it's really going to move the needle on like how you feel or how you feel about yourself or any of that, that's where we get into trouble.
Yeah, I agree. But it goes back to my point earlier of like those pleasurable activities will still release, they'll still work on your opioid receptors. They will still be working on that opioid pathway where you feel that euphoria, but you're just not constantly chasing it anymore. It's the dopamine has dampened, the chase, run. I have to get to that euphoria. I have to get to that opioid release is not as prominent and it's not driving every little damn thing that you do. And it's not creating that vicious cycle of addiction. So yeah, it makes complete sense.
How are some sustainable ways that people can approach weight loss or moderation without using GLP-1s?
Yeah. I mean, there's still many people out there that have huge success stories that lose weight without needing medication, right? It's still at the end of the day, and this is the way that GLP-1s work, is it's calories in versus calories out. They reduce the amount of calories that you take in. So if you are one of those people who, I don't know what impetus it was, like for some overweight or obese person that actually set off a fire under them that created this newfound motivation to do the work, which is extremely hard to do. And there is so much gaslighting that goes into losing weight because you'll have someone who doesn't believe in GLP-1s who will say, listen, you just have to get off your ass, exercise, and start eating less. That's a lot easier said than done. That is the hardest thing to do when your genetics are driving obesity, when you've been obese all your life, or when you just are depressed because of the way that you look. It's very, very difficult to get out of that. But if you can, and there's some fire that you've got, start small. One small thing. I don't think people realize that it's like some really small steps you can take to start losing weight. And then that encourages you, that makes you feel good about the process. And then you keep on going with the weight loss, right? And that small amount of weight loss, even 5 to 10 pounds, can make someone feel so much better so that they start exercising, right? So it's like one thing. Stop putting 5 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee every morning. And people, when I tell them that, I'm shocked that some people are still doing that. I'm like, wait, you really do that? And they're like, yeah, I have a full on, like I dump the sugar in my coffee in the morning. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done that in like years. That's such a treat for me. Or stop buying soda. Stop buying, you don't need to drink Pepsi. You don't need to drink juice, right? These are like extra calories that you just don't need. So it's calories in versus calories out. If you can find some small steps to do that and you can actually achieve it that way, kudos, wonderful, good for you. I bow down. That is the hardest thing in the world to do, especially if you've been overweight all your life. But if you cannot, and you're struggling and you're being gaslit by people telling you to do these things and you just can't do it, then start a medication. It helps you. These GLP-1s are here to save lives. They don't increase the risk of cancers. There's a huge Scandinavian study that just studied 145,000 people and did not show an increased risk of thyroid cancer like we once thought. that was only seen in rats. Actually, obesity increases the risk of various cancers, including thyroid cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer, and many others. So these medications and weight loss will increase your health, increase your longevity, increase your brain health, as I talked about. Now we know it's neuroprotective, anti-inflammatory for your brain, the GLP-1s, and sustain you and potentially help you to have increased self-confidence. The other thing that I didn't mention as part of that one study, Ozempic in the brain, Ozempic actually also was shown to not have an increased risk of suicidality and not have any negative psych outcomes like we've been thinking, like maybe cause depression and anxiety. So it's great. Are there some negative side effects? Yeah. As I told you, I tried it 1 week and I felt like, oh my God, I was super nauseated that first time. Like I didn't need it. I did it as an experiment. Okay. Don't judge me, people. I wanted to know what my patients feel like. I did it for 1 week. I felt really nauseated the first 2 days. And then after each injection, yeah, there's some weird noises. After each injection, your body gets used to it. You feel better and better, and people do really, really well. The risk of side effects are incredibly low.
What is your body's weight set point?
Mine?
No, in general.
It's a very personal question.
Whoa, hard pivot.
Well, the body's weight set point. So there's this idea that the brain and body want our bodies to be in this one set point. Like I have many, many patients who have struggled at some point in their life, and so most of the time they'll actually tell me, hey, I've been skinny all my life. And then when you really dig, you'll look back and like at some point in childhood, they struggled a little bit. They were a little bit on the higher end of that growth curve, right? But at some point, especially classic case, I have a patient that's like in perimenopause, their hormones are changing, and now their weight set point for some reason has changed. And they just cannot get that extra 10 to 15 pounds off no matter what they do. And their weight set point has changed from like 130 to 150, and it makes them miserable. They're like, what can I do? So this weight set point phenomenon sucks. It's really, really frustrating for people because they exercise, they try to eat less, and the weight just doesn't come off because of that. We think that maybe it's the hypothalamus, a part of the brain that's involved. We think it could be just your hormones. We're not sure exactly what it is, but it's a brain-body connection that's causing your weight to stay at one place. And I will say that the patients will always tell me, Doc, I cannot eat any less. I cannot eat any less. It cannot be a calorie deficit thing. I put them on the medication and they go into a calorie deficit and they lose the weight and their weight set point changes. So the weight set point thing is real, but calorie deficit is always going to win. It's always going to help to lose that extra weight that people are just really struggling with and can't get off.
And oftentimes people think that they're in a calorie deficit, but they're not. So what are some common contributors to maybe not being in a deficit that people don't necessarily think of? I know one obviously is like scooping from the almond butter jar and like the handful of nuts. Like, is it really the handful, or are you eating 2,000 calories of nuts?
So I'll tell you one thing that I really hate is like people who are extreme about diets. And this is so frustrating to me. It's so frustrating to everyone. There are crazy people on the internet that say that you have to not eat this like one category of food. I think the lectin theory of food is total bullshit. I don't think it's founded. And actually we have evidence to suggest that it's not. Then you've got people saying, don't ever eat fruit because it's going to make you gain weight. Don't ever eat nuts because it has too many calories. It's going to make you gain weight. So I hate the villainizing of food because whole foods, if they're truly whole foods, are healthy for you. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, these are all good for you. And honestly, like even bad foods, okay, once in a while in moderation are fine. But what it comes down to is any food that you eat in excess of calories is just going to make you gain weight. If you have too much fruit, you may gain weight. If you have too many nuts, you may gain weight. If you have too many vegetables, too much broccoli can make you gain weight, right? Like anything can make you gain weight if it's eaten in excess. So don't villainize food, but calorie deficits are real. So too much of anything will cause weight gain. Some of the most common foods that people just will shovel into their mouth. And they're healthy foods in moderation, right? But they're just a really dense source of calories. Fruit is a huge one. Okay. Like fruit is good for you. It's healthy. Eat your fruit, but don't eat too much. 5 apples in one setting or 5 bananas they're going to make you gain weight. I remember, oh my God, I hope they don't listen to this, but my husband's family, they are just like, they have this unhealthy relationship with food. Okay. And I remember one time, oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble. But one time I went over to my brother-in-law's house, and he had all of these foods from Costco that he had bought and put on his counter. And he was like, I'm on a diet now. I'm eating all these really healthy foods. And it was like, okay, fine. Sure, they're great if you eat them in moderation. But it was like bags of dried fruit, especially, and like other sorts of dried snacks.
I love dried fruit.
I love them too. They're so yummy, and I have them all the time. But like they bought these Costco sizes, and I highly doubt that in that house, that bag lasted more than 3 days. Like there's no way. So they're eating healthy things that should be eaten sparingly in excess. And that's going to make you gain weight. It's too many calories. So it's just like anything that you even think could be healthy, if eaten in excess, is going to make you gain weight. Calorie deficits work. And I ask my patients all the time, all the ones that swear I don't eat anything. I have a nanny for my kids, okay? And she's so sweet. She's so wonderful. She's amazing. I love her. Angel. And she has told me for years, I don't eat. And I swear to God, I never see her eat food too. I'm like, how is she still overweight? This is the craziest thing. Is this terrible? Am I going to get in trouble?
No.
No, this is true. It's a true story. It's like a classic story. And anyways, so God bless her, I put her on tirzepatide, which is this GLP-1. It's amazing. It's a dual GLP and GIP agonist, and she is losing weight. Why? Because she's in a calorie deficit now. She was probably going home starving and eating everything in sight and just downing 2,000 calories, 2,500 3,000 calories in one setting, and making up for what she wasn't eating at my house because she just wouldn't eat. So calorie deficits, counting calories works. If you actually sit there and use MyFitnessPal and you count your calories, you're probably in excess if you're not actually losing weight.
What about, I mean, there have to be people who are like, I'm in MyFitnessPal, I'm weighing my food, I know exactly what I'm putting in my body, and yet I cannot lose weight. Like, does that factor into something like PCOS?
Oh,
if
yeah.
you have like insulin resistance? Like
100%. There are some, absolutely. They're rare, right? But even PCOS patients do incredibly well on GLP-1s. They lose weight.
Hormonally too, right?
Hormonally. Their fertility increases, and the PCOS symptoms decrease. Their hirsutism, the facial hair, that truncal obesity really responds well to GLP-1s. But absolutely, there are hormonal contributions. And so I do have some patients where they are just not responding. And I tell them, listen, it's time to get you in to see an endocrinologist. We need to do a full hormone panel. We need to check. Obviously, thyroid is like the biggest one. We need to make sure that your thyroid levels are balanced, and that you're not having especially hypothyroidism, excess cortisol states. Sometimes some rare tumors can be hormone secreting and cause problems with excess weight. And then there are some rare causes of obesity that actually don't respond to GLP-1s. They're super, super, super rare, but sometimes they do exist, and there are things that should be looked into for sure.
What about things like berberine, quote unquote, nature's Ozempic?
Yeah.
What is the validity to that?
I mean, I've never seen like a great double-blinded placebo-controlled study. And in all fairness, we're not going to, right? Like supplements kind of, it sucks. Like, first of all, I think that they're over-promoted, okay? But also, some supplements do work, but we're never going to get good studies from them because there's not a pharmaceutical company backing the study, okay? Like, we have these huge companies backing these studies for Ozempic and Mounjaro. So they get the good studies. We see the safety data behind them because they have pharma money behind them. That's the honest truth. Berberine, I've seen people try, and I actually haven't seen much success, to be quite honest. Like, I'll tell my patients, listen, if you use it as an adjunct and you think it's helping you, maybe it's placebo. I don't know what it is. Great. But I also think people take too many supplements. I actually promote a supplement myself. It's magnesium L-threonate, but I tell everyone, if you're not sleeping well, eating well, and exercising, don't waste time on anything that I promote that's a supplement or that anyone else does, because it's a waste of money and they're expensive, right? Like, I love magnesium L-threonate. It's the only form of mag that crosses the blood-brain barrier and actually helps with cognition, and it gets into the brain, right? It's patented for that permeability, which is amazing. But truly, don't waste your time if you're not living healthy. Don't buy it. It's expensive. And unless you're a huge, huge, huge supplement company, you're not even making that much money on it, which I'm not. So I believe in it. It's great. But don't buy it if you're not doing the foundational things.
Yeah, it should be like a cherry on top, not the
Exactly.
entire sundae.
That's exactly right.
I love threonate, by the way.
Right?
Love it. Yes.
I know.
So I feel justified now.
Yes. Oh, I take 3 capsules every night, even through pregnancy.
Really?
It's so great. And ever since I started taking it, I have my husband on it too. It helps sleep, cognition, focus. It's helped me so much. Which brand do you use?
I use Symbiotica.
Yeah. There's this
It's like my bedtime dessert. That's partially why I love it.
Yeah.
Because it has that, I don't even know what it is. They use coconut nectar or something. So it's
They
like a
have
little
that
bit sweet
liposomal,
almond oil. Yeah.
right?
And it's just like, I don't know. I used to have such a crazy sweet tooth where like I had to have something sweet after dinner and I had to have it right before bed. I would eat at like 10:30, like a yogurt bowl with all this stuff in it. And then some reason, beginning of last year, like that just kind of went away, but I still like just a little something. And for whatever reason, that, and then I also like the Symbiotica Sleep. It's like a cacao liposomal thing. It's like, I don't even know what's in it, but I have those too. And I'm
Well,
like,
now
good
no
night.
one's going to buy mine.
Oh, sorry.
Damn. No. As I said, like, I truly don't make that much money. It's the profit margin is so small. I really just branded mine because I believe in it. And I don't want to brand anything else because there's nothing else that I found that like I really believe in. I do like the Symbiotica one too. The only reason I didn't continue using that one is because it was breaking my fast and I was fasting.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like on
the
this
coconut
hardcore
nectar
fast
and the,
thing, but whatever. Yeah, no, but their stuff is great. The owner's amazing. She lives in San Diego, Durana. She's
I love
wonderful.
her.
Have you met her?
Yeah, she came on.
She's awesome.
Mhm.
They're so smart.
Yeah.
I love
They're doing
everything
incredibly
Symbiotica.
well.
No,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, they're so doing
Crushing
so
it.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need my endorsement.
Yeah.
They're great.
Mine either, I don't think. What about vitamin D? I know that you've talked about this before.
Yeah,
as well.
vitamin D is so important. We're all low. Everyone's low in vitamin D. And you've got all these crazy people saying go walk in the sun for an hour and get your vitamin D. But the problem is that like it ruins your skin. I don't know. I'm really, really paranoid about my skin. I wear tons of sunblock because I believe in sunblock. It works. But I also I wear a visor because I usually use retinol when I'm not pregnant. I use retinol and vitamin C. And then if I'm in the sun, even with sunblock, I can hyperpigment, right? So like, I don't want to get my vitamin D from the sun. It is good to be in the sun. It's good for you. But I choose to get my vitamin D from a supplement. And I take 4,000 to 5,000 IUs every day to keep my level just within the normal range. And this is the problem. It's like, as a neurologist, I've seen a lot of multiple sclerosis patients. Vitamin D3 is neuroprotective to our myelin sheath. And we actually check our vitamin D3 levels in most of our MS patients and want their levels to be between 60 and 100, 60 to 90, 60 to 100. And the normal range in a lab is like 30 to 60 or 30 to 80, but it's above 30. So we want our levels to be higher. So we know it's neuroprotective, immunoprotective, helpful in hormone health. Vitamin D3 is an amazing and underrated supplement. Firm believer in vitamin D3. It's incredible.
With K2 or on its own?
I take mine without K2.
Okay.
Do you do yours with K2?
No. But I have some, because I am given so many supplements.
Yeah.
And I know the D3 K2 combo is a big thing. But the one that I take is, I want to say Designs for Health, and it's just regular vitamin D.
I just take the regular old vitamin D3.
Let's see, anything that we should all be doing when it comes to our weight, if we're not on GLP-1s?
Yeah. Exercise and whole foods. Like, it's simple, right? If you're not on a GLP-1, we should be moving. Weight resistance training is big, But so is cardio. Like, I feel like we're all talking about resistance, resistance, resistance. Cardio is still really, really good for our brains and our hearts. So a combination of both is awesome. Um, and whole foods, just stick to whole foods, eliminate alcohol as much as you can, live a balanced life. I know you're in a different category. You don't drink at all, but like if you are out, right, and it's like once a month, twice a month, and you want to have a cocktail or two, have a cocktail or two. Don't deprive yourself of something if you're not in that special category. Like, have a cocktail, enjoy it, fine, move on. If you're out and you want to enjoy that meal and have that dessert after, enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it. Live a balanced life. Be normal, but in your day-to-day, have a routine, try to restrict your calories and focus on whole foods. It's easy. You don't have to be extreme. You don't have to be weird. Like, you don't have to follow some crazy diet. It's just restricted calories. If you're trying to lose weight or maintain your weight, keep it in that calorie range that you're supposed to be at for your height and goal weight, and move. That's it. Simple.
Amazing. Everything in moderation, including moderation. That's what I'm thinking. It's like this quote that I heard, and I feel like that kind of aligns with everything that you're saying. I love it too. Don't be weird.
Don't be weird.
It's medical advice. Don't be weird.
Seriously, there's so many weird people out there. They're extremists. I hate it. It's
we're in
too
this
much.
era of extremism too, where it's like that's what gets engagement.
Engagement.
Like, how weird can you get?
Yeah. Nobody wants someone saying just be normal, do the things you're supposed to do, be balanced.
No.
But it's the truth. It's the honest truth. It's science. It's the science. We believe in science.
Love it. Tell everybody where they can find you.
On my handles, Dr. Brain SD is my personal / business. And then I've got my weight loss only GLP-1 account, which is Dr. Brain RX. But if you're looking to sign up for a GLP-1, drbrainrx.com is where you can find us, sign up for a quick consult, talk to our team, and we'll get you set up if you're an appropriate candidate.
Thank you.
Thank you.